and welcome back to DUFC's Quaran-Tea Time Q&A. In this video, Maxton Milner will answer your questions about fencing internationally. The video is a bit long, so we put timestamps for each question in the description below. I hope you enjoy. Now over to Max.
First ever international was when I was at Trinity. I did the Dublin satellite in épée. I didn't have an underage career in terms of cadet and junior, so I kind of came to it quite late, really. So it was very much based around making the cut in order to get pinks. That was the key thing for me. And if you like, to that point, because I was a sort of decent underage fencer, but I never quite made it, injured and stuff like that as well. And so then when the pinks criteria meant that I needed to go and do this, suddenly it was sort of doable. And satellites are there's no entry requirement in British for British fencers, so you could just rock up and essentially pay the entry fee. Whereas for World Cups and Grand Prix and all of that, you have to qualify and be in the rankings and be on the British circuit, which obviously being in Ireland, I wasn't. So that was my first taste of it. And then from then started doing more of the satellites, did a couple of seasons there. When I was in Spain on my Erasmus year, I used that as a bit of a base to go to Italy and, flew back to Dublin and that kind of thing. So it was already good there. And then when I left Trinity, got a job in London, and from then started training with a British club, got on the British circuit. My ranking advanced up high enough that then qualified for the A grade tier, so World Cups and Grand Prix. It's a really interesting question in that it's like a really classic line that people all say, oh, it's a totally different sport at the different levels. And I've certainly found it, they really offer different things and they require different things of you. So in Ireland, the competitions are physically very, very small in terms of the entry numbers. And obviously the quality varies depending on the weapon and the competition and all that kind of stuff. But in a sense, it kind of doesn't matter how you do in the pool. It's very much a warm up because there's no cut, and you're going to hit the hard guy, whether you get him in the first round, the second round, the quarters, the semis, the final, whatever it is. But you have to fence everybody. You can't really avoid anyone. And obviously on the day there'll be exceptions, but that's sort of the broad measure of it. But so in that sense, there's a real possibility to warm up. Almost, you do your warm up, you're fencing both, physical and your fencing. But in a sense, you can do really well in the pool, or you can absolutely bomb the pool. It doesn't really matter. What I took away from Ireland a lot personally was having the confidence to walk into a room and believe that actually you should be looking at matches and competitions and in the aim of winning them. So. And the reason that was so important was because they're smaller, because everybody there, because essentially it's not as big and as scary as when I was a kid. And I'd go to these, opens in the UK, which have 100 people in them, and you don't know anybody is, and they're all big and they're all scary. And it's very easy to walk into the room and be totally overawed and to think that everybody can hit you and everybody can do everything. And actually going to Ireland, where you get to know the people, you get to you really get to become comfortable on the circuit, and actually then approaching it to say, got 5 matches to win a competition, that kind of thing, and taking that, and obviously you don't every time, right? I did pretty well on the Irish circuit and had a couple of really great really fun seasons there, and like I was first in Ireland my first year and second in Ireland in my second year, so that all went very well. But actually in terms of the soft skills of sport, of believing yourself, and of actually when the crunch moment happens, being able to convert the opportunity into success, that was really, really huge. And so what was interesting is then when I went to Spain in my third year, it's a similar setup in the province I was in. It's a very similar setup to Ireland, and I was really able to sort of take those lessons and just hit the ground running. And it was really quite world apart from what I'd had before growing up in the British circuit, where it's huge and it's scary. If you lose all your pool matches, you're out, and if you lose a lot of them, then you've got a more difficult path in the competition. And getting up in the rankings to then make things easier to then get into the international circuit, just getting that high ranking really is important to then allow you to have a fighting chance to get the ranking points. And then that trend goes even further on the internationals. So the internationals are it's really like the cut is brutal. So you have to basically win half your matches in the pool to guarantee that you'll even get a DE. You can get through if you have 2 wins out of 6, but if you get 2 wins out of 6, chances are you're going to get absolutely battered by whoever you're up against, because it's basically the top seed. So actually, the international circuit, the mindset is so totally different in that there's no warm up. Every mistake is punished, and everyone else is also fighting for their lives, because generally the standard across the board is so high that the bottom seed can beat the top seed or second seed or whatever. So actually then in terms of the applicability of the lessons, it's like having to relearn that lesson from Ireland of actually when the moment comes when it's really difficult and pressured that you deliver. I am a diplomat. I work for the Foreign Office here in London, and so in terms of training, I'm in a better position than some in that kind of public sector, you're better able to leave the office at a reasonable time than you are a banker working 100 hours a week or something, or a lawyer or something like that. But at the same time, it's hard. So for example, training, they were like Brixton, the club, my club in London decided to start training half an hour early, and it's like, right, get here for 6:30. You go, yeah, that's not always possible, and it's and it can be very frustrating when because you're training with people who predominantly are in their early 20s, late teens, that university type phase, and then when actually you get into your sort of mid 20s and you getting there for 6:30 is hard. You might get there either bang on time or sort of 10 or 15 minutes late, and people go, hey, Christ, where have you been? Oh, arriving late. And you think like, Christ, I've kind of slogged my guts out to get here, and I've left other things in my life undone and things like that. So that can be a bit tough. When you're having to travel abroad, be it for work or anything like that, then that can obviously stop you going fencing, and then sort of longer term for me. So I'm going to go abroad in the near future, sort of on a permanent posting somewhere, God knows where yet. But when that happens, obviously fencing, my relationship with fencing will change, and seeing whether it will be possible to continue, trying to get better and trying to, make teams and make, the international circuit and stuff is going to be something I'll have to work out when that happens. So there's a definite impact in terms of you do your training, you've got you're competing, and so obviously I'm not a Premier League footballer. I'm not don't play for Leinster in the rugby. Like you're an athlete, but very much a well-meaning amateur. But even that still requires you to miss things. So for example, I train three nights a week with my club in London, and just don't miss those sessions. So if that means I've got tickets to an Arsenal game but it clashes, then I don't go to the Arsenal game. If people are like, hey, my birthday party's on Friday, and I go, I'm competing on Saturday, so sorry, can't go out, can't have a drink, can't do all of that stuff, and that's kind of not fun. And I remember when I was at Trinity, squad training was on Tuesday and Wednesday mornings in my first year, and Monday night was the big night out for everybody in my house in halls, and I went on a grand total of 1 night out with them on Monday because I had training on Tuesday morning. So it definitely does do that. It definitely does require sacrifice, and that difficult thing of you need to get away from the office, and you really make a choice about, well, am I cutting short the work or am I cutting short the fencing? And there's a whole life strand with that. And the unfortunate reality of doing an activity or doing anything that really put your sort of heart and soul into is that you don't always get the payoff. So I've definitely had it where you go through a string of awful results. You feel like, you go through one of those phases where you don't feel like you know which end of the weapon to hold, let alone how to hit people with it in any sort of decent way. And you think, what the hell am I doing? I'm slogging away, trying to get better at something. There's tons of people who are better than me. I've, put loads of time, money and effort into something and it's all gone wrong. Christ, I should go to that birthday party on the Friday, and you're constantly having to chew that all over. And particularly so I set myself a target of trying to make the Commonwealth team last year, didn't do it, failed. And so I really had this whole sort of semi-existential point where I was like, Christ alive, this is what I've been gearing towards, and it's all been for nothing. And actually, it wasn't for nothing. It got me onto the international tier, and that was really, that's been so much fun, and loads of great things have happened there. But yeah, you really have that personal challenge, and like forcing yourself to get through it and get over it is part of it. So yeah, like here's a fun story, right? So I went to a satellite in Split in Croatia, lovely place. I turn up day before and it's like really boiling hot, and I want to do loads of tourism. I love history, so want to go to these ruins or whatever, and it's like you can't really, because if you spend all day in the sun the day before you compete, you're going to like completely screw yourself. So basically went and sat in my hostel and slept a bit, and went to one small little walk through the centre of town, but that was really it. And then I went to the competition, won all my pool matches. I was ranked number 1. I was feeling, it's amazing. Everything's going great. I'm thinking like, hey, this can all happen. And then I lost my first DE. I was 12-7 up and I lost my first DE. And that was, quite a few swear words uttered to myself very loudly in the corridor. So, and yeah, then it's a long flight home, because you go, what have I been doing with myself here? So, and there's plenty of stories just like that. And then when it all goes right, then if you feel that one moment, you hopefully that's worth it, kind of thing. So I think specifically to international fencing, it's that question of that real knowledge that you're broadly going up against the best people in the world at something. That moment when you're on the so they always have like at the internationals, they have loads and loads of pistes because there's hundreds of people at them. It's like 300 people at Heidenheim, but they have the main central like finals pistes. And so if you're lucky enough to get drawn onto the finals pistes, or you fence someone who's very, very cool, and there's you've got your national flag there, your name, the score on the board, you're live on the FIE's YouTube channel, and that's a rare moment where I've like had friends and family and across the fencing world being like, holy shit, I'm watching you on like live on YouTube, and you go, oh yeah, that's really, really cool. And it's something you should definitely get the photos for, I think, just because who knows if it'll happen again, kind of thing. But it's great fun, and so those moments are great. But I think so that's if you like the international bit, but the rest of it, I think it's actually just a thing about sport in general, and whatever the level you're pushing yourself at is when you achieve at that level. So, it was, in a sense, it's as true for me when I've had some really good stuff in like the last season or last couple of seasons, like, making cuts and stuff like that. That's great. And in a sense, it was as good as when I won my first ever competition. The first proper competition I ever won was the West of Ireland Open, and I'd never won a trophy. I'd won like little things, but I never won a trophy. But it's that moment where you get that success that you've never had before, and that you kind of never truly believed was possible. Maybe that's a terrible reflection on my sort of mental setup, but you kind of never think it's possible, and then you actually do it and you achieve it, and you go like, wow, this is new. I've hit a new high watermark. When you see your name at a new high point in the rankings, and you get that kick, you get that buzz. And so I don't think that's unique to the internationals at all. I think that's just you put work in, fingers crossed you get the reward from it, and then when you get that reward, to really enjoy it. That's the great thing. So I think, firstly, international fencing, I mean, it's definitely a great place to go. It's unfortunately a very expensive place to go, realistically, because of the kit requirements, because of entry fees, Airbnbs and all that kind of stuff, and flights. So it's definitely, it is an expensive thing, and there's kind of no getting around that unless you happen to be one of the Russian professional fencers or one of these Swiss army officers who actually just fences for a living. But yeah, so if you can do it, or if you can even just go to 1 or 2 satellites and stuff like that, personally found it really, really additive in teaching you where your weaknesses are. So there's stuff you'll get away at a lower level, which then you will just get destroyed at, and it's not even visible to you, and you just essentially have to learn the hard way in some senses. And in addition to that, learning the hard way, it also, I have to say, I find it, at least for me, I come back from an international and I feel like there's electric running through you. You're just more menacing on the piste, because actually there's less time to be at ease. Every moment is potentially a threat. Every moment is potentially an opportunity. And so you can't really take your foot off the gas. You've really got to engage really hard. And so taking that mindset and transferring it back, if you can pick up elements of that, I think it then really reaps rewards on the domestic circuit. And it really shows you where you need to improve in a way that just fencing the same people in the same competitions again and again won't quite do. So yeah, that was a real high point. So that was the first time the only time so far that I've fenced as part of the team. So the way team fencing works is like you guys all know, I guess, from relays and varsities and stuff like that. But with at World Cup level, you fence off to get into the 16 as like straight knockout, direct elimination. But then once you're in the last 16, you then you do fencing for places. So once you've got into the 16, you've got 4 matches. 16, 8, 4, 2. Yeah, so you've got 4 matches. And so like British men's épée, or épée is the weakest of the weapons in the UK, and so the foilists are world class and the sabreurs are really getting there, and yeah, so with épée, it's sort of the one that hasn't really had much in the way of results at particularly senior level. So Japan came into that with at least a couple of them have won World Cups before, let alone me being happy that I've made it out of the pool and made the cut and got into the DEs. So and there's real quality on the British team. Like we've got a junior he was a junior world champion sort of 5, 6, 7 years ago, something like that. Guys who've competed at Euros and Worlds and stuff like that. So there is real quality there. But even then, you're not comparing like with like kind of thing, and no one gives you a chance in hell just because we've literally never won a match kind of thing, and yeah, so came up against Japan, and to actually get across the line was just that moment of the winning hit was just like totally insane. Everyone mobs each other, and there's like a great photo that the official photographer got of all of us sort of like unbelievingly clasped, and I'm just like, how did this happen? And that was really, really cool. But what it meant in like knock-on effects was then, like, once we got into the last 16, we knew we had matches against these top class world guys. So we fenced the Chinese, we fenced the Americans, we fenced the Venezuelans, forget who the other one was, but yeah, I mean, it was just like you're going up against these guys who day in, day out, they're seeking to win like these events that you go to, and it really was a cut above, and it really taught me the value of coaching. So we don't have a coach there with us, and it was really visible actually how important it is to have the leadership that a coach provides on the side of the piece, to have the tactical, to make the tactical decisions for someone who's slightly distanced from the, being het up under the mask. And it was really clear to me from sort of experiencing it firsthand how important, how valuable that is in a way that I'd never really appreciated before that. But the other part of it that was really sweet was that then throughout the rest of the day, everyone kept coming up and just being like, hey, well done guys, like great job, because obviously they know we're not going to win the thing, and we lost every single other match we fenced, but it was really like everyone saw like, oh yeah, that was like genuinely like cool and unexpected and impressive, and will like, you need to enjoy that one because it doesn't happen every day. So yes, that is that kind of stuff where people take time out of take the time out of their own moments and their own days, because obviously this matters to all of these guys, but for them to turn around and be like, hey, by the way, you did a cool thing, well done. That's really sweet. One of my favorite moments I've had with that kind of thing is that when I was in Vancouver last year, in my pool in the individuals. So, I won my first one, I lost my second one, do some good fencing, narrow wins, narrow losses, that kind of stuff. You crack on. But basically, I really needed that second win. And the other British guys had done their pools before me, so they're helping me by the side of the piece, giving me advice, that kind of thing. And before each match, everyone's like, oh yeah, this guy, he's left-handed, he loves cease, whatever. They're all giving their little bits of advice. And then there's one guy, and I was just like, okay, yeah, he's French, so he must be good. But like, tell me, like, lads, what's, what should I try? Is it distance? Is it blade work? What's the? And they sort of all just went very quiet, and one went, just go out and just give it a go. Just give it a go. And I was like, oh, well, what does that mean? They're like, just give it a go. Just see what you can do. Just have some fun with it. And he came on guard. And I'm thinking like, right, it's épée, be disciplined, keep it tight, score low, distant, all that kind of stuff. And bounced around for a bit, and then he just hammers me. Just like, I mean, I couldn't even see him, let alone parry him. But it was the hit happens, and I go, there's nothing I can do here. Like, I mean, it's really, maybe I'll get a double if I'm lucky. But it was like, crap, I'm done, kind of thing. Very, very kind of self-evidently. And after I got to the piece, and I was like, yeah, Jesus, lads, he is good. Who is he? And one of them went, that's Bardenay. He won Heidenheim last month. And you go like, you won Heidenheim. That's you literally have your name on a board next to basically like all the great football teams you ever heard of winning the European Cup, who also have fencing sections and have won the European Cup in fencing. And and it's just like, Christ, you're good. And it was that moment of just being like, you are superhuman, and that's really, really cool. So competition preparation is something that, despite getting better and learning more as I go through my sort of competitive life, still in some sense remains a mystery to me. The anecdote I always give for this is that I've had plenty of nights or plenty of build-ups to competition where I've done everything right. I've got a good night's sleep. I've eaten the right foods. I've stocked up on carbs, all this kind of stuff, and then got there on the day and just had an awful an awful time of it. Versus one time where I went to I got up at like 5 a.m, drove to a competition somewhere, and I hadn't got to sleep the night before. I was so wrecked that I had to pull over into a lay-by and nap for 10 minutes to kind of make myself not a danger on the roads to people. And I went and came third. And then you go like, well, what happened there? That's insane. I had it a couple of years ago, competition in Birmingham, the Birmingham Open, which is always a good one for Irish people to come across and do, because it's got that international element. And just by the way, and but yeah, so there was I had left Trinity by this point, but there was a Trinity contingent there. And they sort of watched me suddenly discover the limits of my dehydration. Unbeknownst to me, I was actually severely dehydrated. I didn't understand how that all worked in terms of what the signs are, and drinking liquid is different to being hydrated. So as someone who's sort of, again, been around this for a while and competed at hundreds of competitions, I don't know, actually suddenly I sort of collapse on piste and find out that the preparation needs to be different, both in terms of how you approach the competition, but actually then when you're on the day, what have you done in terms of preparing the right drinks, things to put in your body and stuff like that. It isn't just a simple question of putting calories in and taking on liquid. So yeah, still learning, but I think it comes back to not putting too much pressure on yourself, but also understanding what type of person you are. So for me, I like a bit of pressure, but so it's not as simple as being one of these guys who just goes like, hey, yeah, just turn up, fence your best, do your thing. You know, I like to focus and can be quite intense. But at the same time, I've done it where I've put so much on my shoulders that actually you're a nervous wreck, and you know, and you can't do a thing. So I think it's really looking at yourself and understanding what you react well to, and that won't be the same for everybody. And you know what, if fencing is a random sport in many ways anyway. It's really hard to, you know, predict in many senses, and it's quite a small sample size. You know, you go along, you do one pool, you might lose a couple of matches 5-4, and then you get a bad draw and you're out. And actually, so you might have prepared really well for that, and you don't get much in return. So I think it's, you know, look carefully at what you're doing in terms of preparation, try and tailor it to like who you are and how you work, but also, you know, don't just say because something went wrong, actually the preparation was also necessarily wrong. So I like to not use an event as an excuse to not train. That's always been like a really important thing to me, because, you know, it's very easy if you go and you win a competition, it's really easy to then be like, yeah, fencing's the best thing in the world. I want to do it all the time. I want to, you know, turn up training, be the guy, everyone's chatting, but then when you lose and you go, actually, I've pulled a muscle. Oh God, yeah, no, I really shouldn't go. And it's like actually because you're sick of it and you're really irritated with yourself and you want to run away from the bad thing. So I tend to try and set myself the sort of standard practice of, you know, like if you're back in the country, if you're in town, whatever it is, then you know, if Monday's a training day, then you go training on Monday. But that doesn't always work. Like sometimes I've done it where actually, so personally, for example, I go through sort of not cycles. It's not as clinical and as sort of exact as this, but sometimes you just get a little bit sick of it. You know, fall out of love with it a bit. Your body's not quite doing what you want it to do, and actually just taking a couple of weeks to go away, like live your life. You know, maybe get a bit more sleep, whatever it is. You know, but you know, go see a show, see some people, and then actually you come back to it, and that point where you go, God, you know what, I really miss fencing, or God, actually, you know, I need. As weird as it sounds, you know, the place I want to be in the world is in a dingy sports centre, you know, trying to hit someone with a 3-foot piece of metal, and so really, you know, actually sometimes I've because of that instinct or that thing to try and force myself to go training, and because you don't want to lose the opportunity. You know, you feel you're in competition with people, so if you stop training, they're just going to get better. But actually, sometimes I've done it where you go training, you're not getting very much from it. You then get more tired, more exasperated, you get more on top of yourself, and the cycle repeats. So yeah, learning when to actually pull back and say, I'm giving myself some time here. There's not a hard and fast rule, but it's important to try and learn that. Again, on some, like how long's a piece of string, it depends on where you're starting from in terms of mentality and stuff, but my broad message is, I think in épée, particularly the higher you go in it, you can't be too disciplined and too conservative. So to explain that, so for example, when I turned up in Ireland, by being you know, having good footwork and being like by nature quite aggressive on the piste, and like I want to go out and hit people all the time, and by origin being a foilist, I was really able to just like walk off the line, and that's how all the hits happened. Now sometimes you'd get the hit and sometimes you wouldn't, and you'd win or you'd lose, but that was really stylistically all I ever needed to try and do. And then actually when you get into you know, when you come up against good people, you understand why saber and foil have priority, because it's really hard to attack people. It's really hard to attack them. You know, if someone knows you're coming and they're halfway decent, they're going to stop you. And actually, you know, it's all a bit more complex than that. And in particularly then sort of taking it through up to the international type level, I've summed it up to people in this quite brutal style, but I really think it's true. Actually, very often it's just a question of who's going to break. Everybody can do everything, you know, unless you really are fencing one of like the genuine, you know, Max Heinz's, your Bardenay's, your whoever. actually everyone can kind of do everything, and it isn't that you're going to trick shot someone with oh, you can flick and I can't. It's like that doesn't exist. And actually it's just a question of really mentally building pressure, building it through footwork, building it through timing, making that guy make a mistake. And it's a really weird thing, because it almost stops being about fencing, if that makes sense. It so becomes this mental battle of we're bouncing around from the side of the piece. It looks like not much is happening, but actually those really fine margins of footwork and timing and everything, it's just building the pressure until the guy snaps and lunges at you or whatever it is, or vice versa. And there's moments where I've bounced around with someone for like 50 seconds, been so disciplined, not thrown myself in, really stuck to a plan, how the guy's going to be, and then I just do something, and seconds later I'm like, you threw, that was, you're so unnecessary, and you have to kind of look yourself in the face and go, yeah, he won that battle. He broke you. He beat you in terms of like discipline and being able to withstand pressure, and that's that's the real thing. If it's a minute and a half and there's no score, that's not a bad thing, because actually it's more about, have you been pressuring the guy? Have you been sitting on top of him? Have you been doing all of that? And that has applicability to the other weapons too. It's just obviously like, you'll never get a minute and a half into a saber bout. But yeah, so I mean, but particularly with épée, running up and down the piste, bouncing up and down the piste for a minute is a great thing, and learning to love it. But not in the absence of doing nothing. Really scare the guy if you can without endangering yourself. Simple. There's a smaller lesson, or there's a smaller thing that I've learned, but it's being prepared to lose big sometimes. So I don't know, it can be really, really easy at like 13-9 or 12-8 or something to say, yeah, I just keep fencing tightly, whatever it is, and get a point here, get another point, suddenly you're back at 12 or whatever it is. And that's true, and that can work. But there are some times where you might go, actually, I'm tactically shot. I've got no idea what's happening. The guy's, his trajectory is going like this. Mine's sort of pootling along. Now is the time to totally change it up and throw the kitchen sink. And maybe that doesn't work. And, maybe that's, you feel bad afterwards. But actually, sometimes, if you're going to lose 9 out of 10, but you get that 10th one by just suddenly running at the guy and, being insane for 30 seconds, it's better than losing all 10 of them respectively, and also here's just a different one. It's, I think for me, one of the lessons I've really learned as well is being comfortable with your decisions. So there's a difference between making a decision and actually it not working, or it being the wrong decision, versus someone breaking you in terms of pressure, and that you're basically doing something because he's forced you to. So I had one in a team competition where we were down by quite a bit, but I was the anchor, got on last, and I brought it back to 44 all. And I had been like, I'd done a bit of throwing the kitchen sink because it was like 15 seconds to go and I was 2 hits down, or something like that, or 3 hits down. And I got it back to 44 all, and I had like 4 seconds left. And I thought, yeah, I reckon I reckon I can run at him and still get this. So I ran at him and he hit me. And that's really, it's really painful, where it goes from like the crescendo building of all your teammates being like, yeah. And then, and actually, someone said to me afterwards, you're the guy on the piste, it's your decision. You can't be afraid of you can't be afraid of it. You can't second guess yourself. And yeah, so, you might win or you might lose, but actually be comfortable that you made a decision that you felt was right. Again, on some level, it comes down to just who you are as a person. I think you've got to have the drive in you to want to win. You've got to have the drive in yourself to want to improve. And like, I think defeat's got to sting. So a phrase that I've said to people, I like it is, why does winning feel great? Because losing really hurts. And so I think for me, the drive, part of the drive in fencing is to get those highs, to get those moments where it really feels great. And I think if I weren't affected by losing so much, it would kind of cheapen it the other way. Now, that said, I've definitely learned over the years to just accept some days it doesn't go for you, and particularly in the way that fencing ranking systems normally work. So everywhere I fenced, you don't actually need to be great all the time. You need to have like 1 or 2 good results, a few pretty decent results, or a few average results, and that'll do you for a good ranking. You don't need to win 10 competitions a year. Though obviously it'd be nice if you could, but yeah. So being comfortable with saying I don't like the defeat, but actually it happened, and onwards and upwards to the next one. For me, when I've lost matches and I felt nothing, just nothing, that's personally a really good sign that I'm shot mentally. I need to give myself a break. I need to properly just take time out to recharge the batteries, because it's quite indicative, particularly the way I am as a person of fairly intense and etc. To then suddenly have the air come out of the balloon and you go, oh, that's not normal. That probably means I've been trying to push it too far. So I think a long-term focus, by which I don't mean put off your reward until forever's tomorrow, but it's not all about today. And even if it is about today, you need to trick yourself that it's not all about today. So if you go into something saying I've got to get a result, I've got to win, I've got to do this, maybe you're someone that really works for. But personally, I'd say chances are many people aren't. What you want to do is put yourself in a nice, comfortable, happy place, a good zone. And it's why you see people put music on or whatever it is. But you want to put yourself in a good zone where you can perform and deliver, versus actually stressing yourself out that this is the be all and end all. And so I had a really nice example of that a little bit about a coach of mine was watching a match that I had, and it was at an international. The guy on the other end of the piece was really good, but we'd had this really great tactical battle back and forth. I was up, he was up, I was up, kind of thing. And then the last number of points just drained away from me, and I was at the end of it, I was like, I don't know what happened. It's like the guy seemed to move up another gear, and the coach sort of brings me aside and shows me the film he shot on his phone, and it's like I've gone at the beginning of match and being like really calm and the shoulders are down and relaxed and like I'm bad, smooth footwork, everything like that, to right at the end it's just like so tense, so up, so tight, and I'm almost too afraid to lose. I'm too conscious of the score. I'm too conscious of the situation and knowing that, my God, it's 13-12. I must win this point. And actually, it was really interesting seeing the physical manifestation of that on the side of the piece, because I didn't feel any different. At all. But actually, it's like the evidence is unarguable. So again, I think trying to take the pressure off yourself, while not just sort of being like, hey, who cares?
That's all for now. In the next part of Quaran-Tea Time Q&A, Max will answer your questions about being a fencer during the lockdown. I hope you enjoy.